6:32, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Jack is absent. Okay, attested publication, sorry.
I saw it.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Lori to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I will read the mission, vision, and values tonight. Mission, Bangor Pride, a small school building big futures. Vision, an innovative small school creating excellence through personalized learning and relationships for all. Values, student-centered, small class sizes, continuous improvement, professionalism, opportunities for all, safety, foster community, sustainability. The Board of Education collective commitments. As a member of the Bangor School Board, I will be an active listener who is open-minded, respectful, and inquisitive. Together, with one collective voice, we are committed to forward thinking while strategically prioritizing for our students, staff, and community now and into the future. All right, any public comment? Okay, approval of the minutes from the, you've got April 12th here.
March 8th. March 8th.
What?
March 8th. March 8th.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, wait a minute here. March 8th, from our March 8th meeting. Got it.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Shelley to approve the March 8th regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Jean, I'll abstain.
Same date, March 8th, closed session.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Tina to approve closed session, March 8th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Students.
So tonight we have with us Gabby Schrader and Nora Tucker. I would like to thank them because I know they're extremely busy all year long in the spring, now that they're seniors especially, gearing up for that home stretch. So it really is nice that they could come in. I know we've asked a lot of NHS members to come in, and they're not beating down the door to come in here, so I think we need to offer a little bit more incentive. So I told them when they come next month, maybe we'll have something more for them. So thank you, girls.
Go ahead.
So this Saturday, there's prom. The juniors have been working really hard, and the theme is Night in the Country. NHS is hosting a fundraiser for Children's Miracle Network, so we're having a dodgeball game for all high school students. So it's $5 to play and then $2 to watch. Our goal is $300 for just the kids that donated and $500 for the whole high school to come and watch. There is state testing for high schoolers. Cooperation is the elementary word of the month. There was qualifiers for nationals for FCCLA, and then there was also state qualifiers for National History Day. And then solo ensemble was April 1st for band and choir kids.
And I'll follow up. So our FCCLA Nationals is in Denver, Colorado over the 4th of July weekend, and we just found out a second student will be going as well that qualified.
Hello. We had our winter banquet on March 20th that recognized all the student athletes that participate in basketball, girls basketball, boys basketball, wrestling, and hockey. And it recognizes what awards they got and just their participation, which is really good. Olivia Schrader was honored at a lunch at the Kiwanis lunch. It was like a good person award and a good student. It was very good. We had a state art thing at Madison, and two students, Olivia Schrader and me and then 2 middle schoolers were honored there, and they got to put up their art and show it off in the mall there. And it was really cool. We had some lunch there. There was an honor student banquet that Ben Lockman and Sadie Casera attended. I believe that was last night. The 7th graders are going on a trip to Poinet. They left today and are coming back Friday. And the 6th grade is on a DC trip later this month, which they will have fun at, I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in. All right, special recognition. We want to congratulate and thank Jack Liga for her 3 years of service to the Bangor School District as a board member. And David has a plaque for her. Thank you. So, on to board president's report. I want to welcome Kelly to our board, which you were elected on April 4th, and your first meeting will be on May 10th. So we welcome you to our next meeting.
Signed her oath of office tonight, so that's awesome.
No backing out.
So CISA has a Region 6 orientation for new board members, and Kelly and I will be attending that next Tuesday at CISA in West Salem, and I believe it's from 7 to 9. So we'll meet you there, Kelly. So the July meeting is scheduled as usual for the second Wednesday, and I believe our administrators will be at...
We'll be at the PLC's at Work
that's
conference
right.
along with one of our board members, and need to move that back a week.
Great, super. So do we need to July 19th?
I think as long as everybody's aware, and there's no major conflicts, we'll just go ahead and go with that. It doesn't need action as long as everybody's on board.
Okay, so our July meeting will be July 19th at 6:30. CISA 4 delegate for the annual meeting. CISA 4 holds their annual meeting the first Wednesday in June, and I think that's maybe June 7th. And we do need to officially elect a delegate. I do represent Bangor on the CISA board. Actually, I'm a delegate for La Crosse County. There's someone from La Crosse, West Salem, and myself, Holman, and we represent, us three represent La Crosse County. So I need a motion to approve somebody to attend the CISA 4 delegate meeting for this meeting in June, and I would be happy to do that.
I'll make a motion to approve Julie Myers as our CISA 4 delegate for 23-24.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Shelley, to approve Julie Myers as the CISA 4 delegate for 2023-24 annual meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, board retreat. David?
Yeah, I had sent out a doodle poll finally, trying to get this lined up. I thought I had a date and I had the venue all lined up, and it didn't work out with a few of you. So a doodle poll says that May 24th is really the only option right now. Hopefully we can make that work, starting like at 6:00 p.m. I will find a venue that works for that date and time, and I will be sending you an invite soon, but please mark your calendars for that evening for an hour or so of some professional development and conversations, kind of forward thinking for the board, and then a little bit of social time as well. So thank you.
What day of the week is that?
I believe
Wednesday.
it's a Wednesday night.
Wednesday, May 24th at 6 p.m.
What's that time?
Mission.
But you can continue. I just wanted to say I will not be there. That's all.
I will double check the doodle poll, and I guess I can go further into June. But there was nothing else April, May that lined up for everybody. So I can refresh the doodle poll and add some more dates, or we can just go with the 24th. Want me to refresh it and get into June?
I think it would be nice to have us all there.
I think we should all be there too, since it's a retreat.
Agreed. All right, I will put some dates out there in June.
So you might need to send out a new poll.
Yep, we'll do.
And I honestly didn't know how to choose the if absolutely necessary category, so I don't know, maybe, I just put my preferences in there, so.
Thank you. All right, committee reports, Goals Committee. And we did have a meeting in March. Lori is the chairperson.
So we met in March to go over, if you'll recall, we set the goals last year in like July, August, and we usually were just doing it at the end of the year, but this year we decided to do it on a quarterly basis. So we had done it in November, so this was our second quarter, so to speak, I guess, or second half. And so we got an update from the administration team, just kind of on some of the things they've been working on in their different meetings with staff as far as the PLCs and stuff. So the one thing I think I took away that, didn't really realize is at both the elementary and the high school level, they have guiding coalitions in each of those groups. And those are kind of really being a help as far as it's not just the administrators really saying, hey, we have to do this. There's, quite a few of the teachers that are on board with that and really kind of, mentoring their coworkers. Type of thing. So they meet twice a month. It sounds like they spend a lot of extra time outside of just their normal school duties to help with that kind of thing. They're focused on really having some learning outcomes there. So they share some of their assessments. There was one situation where Rick mentioned they actually went on a tour of Western with some of the teachers. And they're just really looking at what's essential and really focusing on those types of things with each of the students or with each of the teachers so that they can help their students. And I think they're also really looking at it across, it's not just like I'm focusing on English or I'm focusing on this. How do they build that as a, cohesive unit, like in all the subjects that the students are in. So I thought that was really good. That's probably more on the high school level. On the elementary level, Mike also has a guiding coalition that he's built. They look at a lot of data. Obviously, they have a lot of testing information and all that available to them. But he actually, because he can pull, all the third grade teachers or all the second grade teachers together, they have have more time to be able to set aside and really go through that data and decide what they're going to do. Or like if one teacher said, I did this and it didn't really seem to work, really being able to work with those other teachers. So a lot of collaboration, I guess, was the key thing I saw. And so all of them, I think, from just hearing like what they've been doing based on the goals we set at the beginning of the year, it's really data driven, but it's really personalized to each student and what that student needs based on what the teacher is able to provide them. So that's kind of our update. I don't know if Tina or Julie have anything in addition or...
I've been able to be on our goals committee since I started, so the last 4 years, and I feel like from our first goals meeting to our last goals meeting, it's so different. But I feel like after our last goals meeting, it was really not just focused on reading or writing or math. It was really individual learning for each student. So I felt like we came out of it in a very good spot. So I like the direction.
I agree. I think it's a really good idea that we meet a couple of times a year besides. Very helpful. Anything else? Any other questions? It's like Lori said, it's Tina, Lori, and myself. All right. Thank you. All right. Policy Review Committee.
Yeah, we just had to reschedule, but we are scheduled, I am scheduled to meet with Neola next week to go through that next round of policy revisions. They are in the board docs for the policy review committee if you want to start looking at them early, but there's a lot of selections that I will make when I go through with Neola to kind of narrow things down. So I'll give you a heads up when I'm done with that process. But that will be in next week, working through that. We will schedule our first PRC meeting, or our next PRC meeting in May at some point in time. Hopefully we can make something work. If we can't make something work, we'll do it in June, whatever, and then approve it, bring them to the board for approval shortly thereafter. I know it's a busy time of year. I'd like to get through this before we get too far into summer, and then we'll be ready for another set in the fall.
I know you all are going to want to volunteer to fill that empty seat.
Yeah.
Because policy is where it's at.
Yeah. So the policy review committee, Joni is our chair, and Lisa sits on that, and Jack has been on that. So we will have an empty seat that hopefully we can get filled. I know we can have those nominations officially at the next meeting. We'll need to be thinking about who's going to step in there, and then we can get them in the in that next meeting with us. So, any questions on policy? All right.
All right, moving on. Financial documents, district financials for the month.
Yeah, hopefully people had a chance to review those. We did get a couple questions on, I think specifically some of the thrills and chills expenses, which is just an in and out for our middle school music students that go to Minneapolis. So we write the check ahead of time, but the kids then contribute to that, and then they do some of the fundraising efforts for that. Lori, there were a couple other things that you asked, but I think we got those questions answered. So if there's no further questions on the financials, we'd look for approval of all four of those financials.
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by Tina, seconded by Lori to approve the financials as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, elementary design update.
All right. Well, I think this is probably maybe the most important part of our meeting tonight, just to be really able to take some time, see where we are with the elementary process. I've shared with you in the past couple meetings, we have meetings every other week, every other Thursday. We go into the meeting, we see some drawings for the first time that we've never seen before, and we make a whole bunch of changes for about 2 or 3 hours, and then we don't see any of those changes for another 2 weeks when they come back in and show us another set of drawings. So it's been hard to share the progress. And because we've passed that 50% mark on the elementary school, and we're feeling pretty good about the walls being where the walls are, it's starting to be more consistent. We're starting to get some of the exciting items. So this is important, I think, for you guys to be able to see. There's some input, some questions that I'm going to ask of you guys as we go through this, and then also for the community. This presentation, as well as some of these individual images, will get put up on our website after tonight, after you've seen them. And they'll be available for the public, so you can send people in that direction. So we are at that 50%, or past that 50% mark. Again, the significance of that is we've clearly defined our spaces. There's a lot of design that still goes in once that we get to that point. That 75% mark is kind of that next benchmark that we're going to hit, and we're looking approximately April 27th, according to the timeline. And at that point in time, we're getting a lot more of the HVAC systems, the plumbing and electrical engineering, those types of things in place. You can kind of see the overall floor plan and what it has evolved to being. The different areas, the kitchen and receiving area up here changed a little bit from our original pre-construction work, and we'll have a zoom in on that in a little bit. We have a little bit of work that's happening or being proposed up here in the staff lounge area where there was some offices being proposed. Getting clarity on that middle section of the building where the cafeteria is. Again, we'll look at that. One of the major shifts that we've made since the pre-referendum, and we've talked about this was originally going to be our special ed area, and instead we've moved 4K over to this area, and we think it's a really good fit in that area of the building. And we've moved special ed more into this centrally located area, and it ends up being a really good flow for us to be able to have room from both sides of the building, or doors from both sides of the building. You can see the elementary addition going on, and you'll get some great images of that. One of the things, and we'll talk about this a couple times as we've looked at this, the staging area that we're going to have so that they can do work while we're doing this is basically going to be bringing in enough gravel to have the base of a parking lot. So when we look at that, we might as well complete that work and actually make that into a parking lot for parking. That was not part of our original scope, but it's something that we feel probably should happen, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So when we look at the elementary addition, we're talking 10 classrooms here in this addition. Included in this addition is a large mechanical room, 2 air handlers that we'll talk about later. And we've had to add this little utility, or what's it called? The IDF or the MDF? The MDF, right? That's the main distribution frame. And there'll also be IDFs, so they're intermittent distribution frames. I'm learning here, that are taken into account for this. Basically, when we get this done and we move teachers into it, this area of the building will be self-sufficient, so that we can start to go into some of those other areas and start doing some demolition. So that's part of that, and it just makes sense for that area. You can see the bathroom areas in here, and the special ed. We're starting to see more of these renderings, which is really exciting when we get a chance to see and feel what it would look like from inside the building. So that space is standing, kind of looking from the new second grade classrooms down out towards the playground in our new addition, showing cubbies similar to what we have right now, showing how we're going to let light in with the windows up above the cubbies into those rooms, the high bay light, and the kind of exposed ceiling up there. Kind of a cool look. So there'll be collaborative spaces. They're just showing us for space-wise. What we are anticipating is probably some more like flexible type furniture out there where the kids can come out and sit and read, or a teacher can bring out a small group or whatever it may be out in the middle. We're working on the furniture separate, but they just gave us that as a little idea of what it looks like. Cabinetry, again, it'll get tweaked a little bit, but in general, this is basically what we're starting with as our base. So all of those new classrooms will have about that for cabinetry. One of the decisions we really had to think about was phone location versus having it be flexible to any corner of the room. That's where the phone will go for the office. That's the teacher desk area. They could still add a second desk, or they could put a kidney table in front of that and kind of use that as their corner. But that's an area that we felt from an IT standpoint and just a functionality standpoint to have it consistent. Each room will have the sink and the drinking fountain in it, and approximately that much storage. We have not dialed into exactly what's inside as far as shelves and organization type pieces, but that's what we're planning towards. The special ed edition, broken down a little bit more, and you can start to see the restrooms here too. We have 3 primary special ed spaces, a special ed office / storage, kind of a home base for them to put some items, a small testing room, individualized restroom for that room that would be large enough for a changing table or something like that if we needed that and we had needs in that area. And then the speech area here. We've also talked about this area having a little bit like a kitchenette in it, so that we can do some life skills type things in that special ed area. Swing area over here. This will be more of a sensory type room, and all of them would be fairly flexible. Ways to get in and out of them and those types of things. The staff storage room, what we really talked about this 2 reasons. 1, having a copier closer to a lot of our teachers, and 2, having a space for especially our paraprofessionals to be able to go in and use like a locker cubby type situation to put their personal items and then close that door off so that can be out of the way. They don't have necessarily a classroom space to do that in. You can see the bathrooms and the functionality. We went back and forth on a number of different things, and we really feel the entrance from this direction allows us to get supervision from both hallways and kind of see who's going in and out of both bathrooms. So sinks on the outside, so we know that we're washing hands, drinking fountains out there, and kind of starting to plan for that. All the ADA clearances and everything in place that we need. The elementary school, the commons area and the music area you can start to see here and then the discovery lab as well. Couple of things, we do plan on using the tables that are in there, and we actually got looking at the tables that are built in, and they're really in good condition. We felt there was a valid reason to have a part of a wall here to separate the lunchroom from the 4K classrooms, especially at nap time, so that we felt maybe that's a good place to relocate those. We are not going to build them in so that we're not tied to forever having a built-in. When they live out the rest of their life, we can actually just unbolt them and then go to regular tables at that point in time. But we want to use the resources that we have in there in really good shape. You can see that we are going to have the post areas in there. Again, all of our other lunch tables will stay. Music area, music storage, common storage. One of the changes that's happened is when they really started looking at the air handlers that will go in this space, they did not have the clearance to do that in a mezzanine little balcony. So we gained the space where we were doing a staircase, but lost some of the storage area for these two spaces to make that happen. So we felt that was a pretty good exchange. The music classroom showing cabinets similar to the new classrooms. The two title spaces and flex space, we do have those all equal in size, and we have discussed this being a expandable or wall that could flexible wall. So we've really kind of investigated as many different options as we can do there. You're going to see a couple of the doorways that are kind of new in here. We are thinking about when there's an event, especially in the in the lunch or in the gym, that maybe they're using the cafeteria as part of concessions or whatever it may be, that we can close that part of the building off so that people aren't wandering through the entire building. With fire code, there's a whole bunch of weird rules on that, so the locations are all very well thought out so that there's still egress out of all of our spaces. The kitchen and receiving area, going through this kitchen and receiving, again, this has been quite a change for our community. And if we walk through this, this hallway is currently inexistent, and this is an existing wall. So this is the full width of that existing hallway where our service line will be. One of the things that we've really tried to do here is get the flow so that we don't have to have a whole bunch of stuff coming out like it is right now. We can have one group coming from this way, one group coming from this way. This is actually showing swinging doors where the milk coolers will be just inside those swinging doors. We open them all the way up. The milk coolers don't have to move. The kids can just come up, grab their milk, and go through. At the end of the day, we close and lock those doors, and they are secured for the day. The kitchen space, we've looked very closely at our inventory. What we can move, we'll move. What we need to purchase new, we are beginning to plan for to figure that out. The refrigerator, freezer areas are going to be a huge improvement over what we have. We have made, I guess, a pretty big decision there. In an ideal situation, if we were building new, this would be flush entrance from the kitchen area into the freezer area, and it would still go onto like a metal freezer floor. But by doing that, we would have to saw into this concrete, dig down, build a new foundation under it. We can save quite a little money by putting a little ramp there and just building it on the existing floor. So just some of those little considerations that we're looking at along the way. The receiving coming into the building now comes in here. Office for our food service staff, our food pantry being closer to the receiving, a bathroom in that space, the dishwasher area, and then having a small concession stand area that will be available when we're hosting events, again, in that gym. We'll show you a picture of this from the outside. To do all this, we're going to have a generator out here, the cooling units for the refrigerator and freezer that are outside versus that really old unit that's in the building now. This will be more of a masonry wall that encloses the dumpsters and encloses the generator and all of those mechanical things. And I think we're going to be able to do that in a pretty tasteful way that it helps. This is one of the facades of the building that will still be that original 1967 facade. So we're trying to figure out ways to make it not look like it's from 1967, and that wall will actually kind of help break that wall up. If there's questions, stop me. To give you an idea of that, this is one of the first renderings we've seen of that retaining wall or that separating wall. Obviously, right now there's a whole lot of big pine trees out here, so we're taking those out. The dumpsters would be in here. That generator and stuff would be sitting back in there. What's important here is I'm going to show you two things, and I'll get to both. But the first thing I want you to look at is I'm going to flip back and forth between these two. One of the things we have to start to think about is the color scheme. So our current building, and this is fairly accurate, is darker and lighter, and then it has this green strip. This would be taking the light and putting it on the wall. This would be, taking some different looks at it, and we'll see one more at that. Which way do we want to flip it and intentionally make it look different, or do we want to make it blend in? So I'll show you that in another image coming forward. So the lighter, the dark going there. The other difference that we come into with this, and this was a recent kind of revelation as they dug into the structure of these buildings, we have been planning all along for these punched openings into what's the existing gym right now or the existing cafeteria to let some natural light into that space. What they've found is structurally to put those punched openings in, they're not going to be very big because you have to have all that masonry structure, and they're actually going to have to take down a whole bunch of structure and rebuild it to make those windows go in. What the architects are recommending, and it's hard to see in this one, and you can see it better in a couple of the other images, is actually going to 2 skylights in that space as well. The skylights, I don't have the close-up image. They are very high gutter around them. So that the water can't just come up over the edge. It's like a foot tall or 18 inches off the roof before the glass starts. We can get, I believe, about 3 times, 4 times the natural light by going to the skylight for approximately the same cost.
David.
Yeah.
It's more than that. It's like 500 cubic feet of sunlight versus 40.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's huge. So a huge amount more light going into that space with the skylights. Where we save a little bit, what makes sense is if we're going to do those skylights, we're going to replace this whole roof while we do it to make sure that we have a solid, just that top, not the whole building roof, but just that whole top. So what we might save a little bit in cost, we gain in the amount of light coming in, and we gain in the fact that we're in a new roof and on at least that area of the building. So you're going to see that in a couple of other images coming up here. That's one of those changes that has been a more recent change that if there's feedback on, please let me know. The parking, as we discussed, is a change that we've looked at in the last couple weeks. Some of these images are showing the sidewalk that goes all the way around here, and that will not be there. It'll stop basically right as they come out this door. We won't have the sidewalk going across there. A couple of those other changes that we've looked at, we're going to get to the mechanical areas. We've had to make sure this is sized appropriately. I told you we added the MDF room there for our fiber to come in to supply internet to the building. We moved this mechanical room, and then we've added another mechanical room up here. What I didn't realize, John knew this and is very gifted in this area. We are limited by the length of wire. And not that we couldn't make longer wire, but the signal loses strength after 290 feet. 290 feet. So we have to have, there'll be 4 points in the building, and we'll include one over in this space that's already there. Those 4 points will get us within 290 feet of every place we need to run. So that's part of that change as well. One of the things here that it doesn't really show, as we look at this additional square footage and the amount of light in here, our chiller may be slightly undersized, which means we may need to replace that, and that sits up on this up on this building here. We're still waiting for the final numbers. It's one of those things that's on our next 5-year list, so if we can get to it with this project, it would be great. This is one of the views that we'll see from the interstate. This red playground area, we will still be able to keep the main structure in place, but we're going to be moving the swing set and the one small climbing area back in this corner. Like I said, this sidewalk won't be going through, but looking at the building, you can start to see some of the color schemes and the things that we're thinking about. Again, if you feel real strongly on color themes and you want to talk to me about those, please do that, or if we want to have some discussion about that. What we are talking about right now is that's kind of a no-brainer, is that we want to go away from the green, and when we do the roof on the rest of the roof at some time, we would go away from that. We'll look into options about maybe painting it, but going to more of a charcoal around the edges of our roof. And then we've got a couple of options, and I think probably I'm going to go to this. This is probably the best way to look at this. What we're looking at is this masonry is not going to match this masonry. They really don't use this type of block anymore in construction. So this is a slightly different look, but it is masonry that is supposed to be, we're trying to color it fairly close to that. And when we look at that, we've got 2 options. We can make it light and dark and try to make the scheme match, or we can intentionally make it mismatch, but stay with the same color themes. And that's kind of some of those conversations that we are having. This masonry would be at the bottom, and then this is all a metal, a seamless metal siding that would go up there. I am very curious from the board. Is there a preference, or is there, I really don't like that and I want it to be pink? Is there any thought on, we can't make it match, I guess, is the bottom line. And if it's not going to match perfectly, do we want to just make it, bring the colors, or try to get it so it looks fairly similar?
So on this one, the bottom, with the bottom staying the darker,
Yep.
so that will not match either? Or is it only the lighter one?
It's going to match close in color, but it's different material. It's a masonry material. We want masonry low, for scratches and nicks and lawnmowers and all those types of things. So it would be similar in color, but it's not going to be the exact same material.
So by the offset, you think you're just bringing less attention to the not matching?
Correct. And that's what the architects are saying. And you'll see there is intentionally about a 3-foot change here in the distance this comes out. They want to break up that change so it's not as obvious of going from one line to the next on a perfectly flat wall. Sorry. Tina, you turned on your mic. Go for it.
I like the other one. And I don't know if I like the other one color, or if I think I would like that to see that a little darker, but the first one I am not in favor of.
So that would be like a masonry cap,
It's like the accent.
like a cement cap.
Oh,
Not orange.
I don't know that I love that brown that's on there, and I understand where we're trying to match with the middle.
Yep.
I like the dark in the window, and if that's reflective, that will help too, I think.
Is everybody okay if we move away from the green and go to a charcoal at the top? Okay. I want to be clear with that, because then all of our metal beams, all the metal exposed out here, all the aluminum would be that charcoal. Okay. This one?
I don't like that one.
So I'm going to go here. That shows the dark up high, which is what you're looking at. That shows the dark up high. That shows the light up high from that side.
Now show me the Bangor Elementary again. Oh, then it's in red. Okay.
And we're still having conversations on the color of that. We probably are thinking black with the color of that. They're currently all green. It doesn't look right.
If you would go with this color scheme with the white cap, would that change everyone's mind?
Is that what you're?
I mean, is it the white cap that
Yeah.
you guys like? I prefer the other one.
I think it's the difference, because on this one, I think this looks okay, because you're not seeing the other side of the lines. So like when I look at this, I like the light. But on the other side, it's the differentiation between the brick on the bottom versus the brick up on the top, and that line that goes across with the coloring that gets me.
So you're liking that one better on this side?
This is the fun meeting.
For like 3 hours. Well, what do you think? I don't know. Can this be a shade darker? We've narrowed it down significantly for you in just the concept of let's try to keep the colors, but we obviously know it's not going to look the same, and what are our options there?
So Shelley, you're thinking the other one, if you take that white and put that in the
Shelley
dark,
likes that.
is that what you're
I
saying?
like the lighter top, the darker bottom, just for the fact of dirt. If we run sprinklers, everything else, the dirt on the bottom, rain,
But-
splash from the dirt up, the darker color's gonna hide that a lot better. The top will expose the light and the building won't look so dark. But yeah, if you put the white cap on that, would that change anyone's mind? Because I heard that they really like the white cap companies, yeah.
That masonry line, that masonry cap. I think that could be,
I mean, Shelley's got a very good point about the dark being on the bottom. Makes it look heavier if it's on top. Makes it look-
I agree with, I agree with Tina. I like that look. But if we
It
want
looks
the
totally
white masonry
different. That's the
cap,
hard part, because this looks sharp right here.
well,
But that's different from what I said on the front, because
so-
of the stone on the front. You
so-
have different views and different angles.
what we'll do is tomorrow, when we meet for 3 hours, we will give them the feedback that we like this. And we'd like to see it with a white cap, and we'd like to see a couple more angles and kind of see where that goes. Right? And then I'll bring that back to you or send it out to you. Okay? Yeah, thanks. Now, the other part, and it's a little bit harder to see, but what we are looking at going here, where'd my laser go? There we go. So this area right here, this is 1967 right now. So it's that section over here that we're hiding part of it behind that wall, and this section here. We originally kind of liked the idea of what metal we do here, we put over here. But if we've got metal on a playground, we were really concerned about dents because it's a playground, and that's what it gets used at. So they're looking at a better than stucco type option that we would be able to match the color. So it's something that we would basically cover the bricks with, wrap everything out so we can get it the colors that we want, but it has the durability and the breathability of the masonry it's meant to kind of bind with that masonry. So we'll continue to see some designs on that, some materials. Hopefully we can see it maybe in place somewhere that we could go feel it and touch it and make sure it feels good. But the concept
So then do you take
is
that trim top off and tuck it into that then for water concerns?
so. I'm sorry. What?
So that line that goes across, right?
It's green.
Yes. So are you going to take that down, put the stucco up, do the dark brown to make sure you're completely sealing it and not going to have water issues? Thank you.
Kevin
Yes.
said yes, so he knows more better than you.
Kevin's shaking his head.
Perfect. Then that's why Kevin's here.
Right.
Yeah.
So then that would get rid of the green also.
On-
It would give you a better.
On this. And one of the things that we've talked about is, you know, I don't know if it's possible, but we may get some bids on what it would cost to paint the green, that at least, you know, even if the paint peels off in 5 or 10 years, it got us 5 or 10 years closer to when we replaced the roof and replaced the metal.
You
So,
replace the metal at the time you replace the whole roof?
yes. So then we'll make it all match at that point in time. Be the same metal. Okay? All right, we will get that feedback. On the inside, these, you want to see, it was kind of funny because this was last Thursday. So it was an in-service day, and we had the interior designers here with us, and they are awesome ladies, and they're showing us all these colors. And Rick and Mike and I are in the room, and we're putting all these color schemes together and talking about this. And basically, the 3 hooded sweatshirts that the 3 of us were wearing on our professional development day were our color theme. You know, so it was, but I said, with what, 12 or 13, 14 clothing sales per year, that's what our community is wearing. That is the colors of our community. So I felt pretty good about that. So in these materials, we have some LVT, right? So the LVT, vinyl tiles that are these longer, thicker pieces. Those are 3 foot by a foot type squares that we put down. And they come in this gray, they come in this pattern, they come in this gray pattern here, this darker or lighter gray, almost white gray, and they come in almost black. So that seam, and then they come in this red. So we're gonna mix those colors throughout our design. These are the paint colors right now. This becomes kind of our standard wall color on most of our spaces. The trim around doors, where like over here behind the admin guys over here, that trim becomes this darker to match the metal outside, which is we have that in some places in our district. And then those other 3 colors kind of become accent colors if we're doing an accent wall. So like a darker wall or a lighter wall. This darker color is something we hope to bring in with some of the furniture. This wood color is what we're talking about for the cabinets. And this is what we're talking about, actually probably a shade lighter than this, for the countertops in those rooms.
So how does this coordinate with our existing that aren't going to be touched? Is it going to be a stark contrast, or?
Yes. The cabinets will contrast for quite some time. As far as the paint colors and the flooring, as we replace flooring, this will be the palette that replaces that flooring in those areas. And then when we replace flooring, we will do walls at that time. But it does contrast. The cabinets that we have right now are not a wood tone. They're more of a solid painted color, gray or even a peach in some places. Is it? No, it's gray in your building, isn't it? We have some peach in the district. So, but we felt with this palette and not having a lot of other colors in there, having a wood grain was important versus just having another color. These materials over here are tiles. So what we're looking at is the wet walls in the bathrooms would be these light colors. The floors would be this darker color in the bathrooms. And then we have these kind of L-shape tiles that come that way, like behind the sinks in that new bathroom and a couple of accent type areas, we would use those, and they actually have a red that we could mix in with that as well. Just to kind of create some of those high profile walls. Won't be everywhere, but a couple of places where they can stand out. Questions or thoughts?
I can tell you right now, the second one from the left, I don't like it's pink.
Which one?
The wild one.
This?
That one and the one next to it.
I would say, and these guys can speak to that. It doesn't look Would you say it looks pink?
Yeah, the picture doesn't do it really justice, and that pattern piece would be more like a random pattern breakup. They did this at UWL when we toured UWL's their new track facility, and it was mostly the grays that you see up there, solids, and then they just put one of those pieces in there here and there. It looks really sharp, and until you see it, but it was really, these colors are. The picture doesn't really do its justice. In fact, that square in the top right there, it's really not that color. I mean,
But I don't think the one in the middle.
Yeah.
The like wood thing on it, no, that one there. Yeah, that big one there. I think that has a pink tone to it.
I would
not in person.
Not in person. We can get all of these, and once we have them, we can
Yeah, I
bring
think
them to a
looking at them
future.
would be nice.
We can bring them to a future meeting.
The little squares. Yeah.
Just
I think it has a pink tint to it.
for the record, this is probably the most painful part of everything I've ever been through in my life. No, all right. I don't want anything to do with it. So, but it does. Some of the you can't see on here. You can't see the texture of like the carpet squares and that. Like there's kickoff carpet that is designed, to knock a lot of the snow and stuff off before it actually gets into the main part of the building. Then there's some other carpet pieces in there as well that similar to what we have in the high school right now. It is coming together pretty great, and the two young ladies that are doing most of this that's what they do. The one thing that I don't think it's hard to remember at the elementary and the new part is it's white. Like literally the entire, you really could look at how sterile that addition is. It's all white. So this will be very different from that, and a good thing, because it looks like a hospital in there, basically, so this will liven it up a lot. And then as we can change the flooring, the transitions on the flooring that we have and that kind of stuff is going to stick out like a remodel. I don't know how you can't, but then we can get some paint down into those other rooms at times. It'll be good.
And we'll get to the point where we'll show you some of the flooring designs and how they're proposing to lay out the tiles. We've seen just a couple of initial drawings of that. We are looking to do an alternate bid package that would include getting all of the hallways to match when we do the hallways. So the replacing the tile in the front entryway too, so that at least the flooring from the beginning and then the wall colors on the walls would all be the same in the hallways, and then go from there. And into the classrooms.
You're talking about getting rid of the terrazzo?
There won't be any terrazzo left.
What's the terrazzo?
The old flooring, the old 67.
Yeah, when you look at the amount of remodeling that's being done here, well, there is none in here. This would be terrazzo back in here. This could stay terrazzo. This hallway could stay terrazzo. And this hallway could stay terrazzo. None of this is going to be able to be terrazzo.
The terrazzo is just the
Yeah.
hallway.
Yeah. It would just be like two pieces that would be possible. What I'm talking about for the alternative bid package would be going from like here and this hallway so that it all matches. And that's not terrazzo, that's tile right now.
Yeah, that's tile now,
Yep. All right. Going back here. When we talk budget, or we talk scope, we are close on scope. We are over in a couple areas. We're about 1,400 square feet over, and part of that's that IT room that we had to add. Part of it's just making sure that we had the space that we needed for those classrooms and everything in that new addition. So that's the new classroom, about 1,400 square feet over. The kitchen is within scope. The punch windows is a changed, but we believe that that's going to be fairly flat line to go to the skylights. We really don't like the idea of skylights. Nobody in the room likes the idea of skylights because it's not a matter of, they always say it's not a matter of if it'll leak, it's when it'll leak. But we do feel that these new skylights would be an improvement over things that we've had in the past, and would work. The special ed STEM just shifted spaces inside. The vestibule and office is a slight addition just in how we're looking at that area. Couple of the places where we've changed the where the restrooms were going to go. We're actually ahead. In all, we're looking at this additional parking lot that's outside of what we originally planned. Extending the storm sewer is something that we're looking at. We may have to do a little bit more of that. We may need that larger chiller. We had to create those dedicated IT rooms, and then that main distribution frame area. So we're a little over, but not over to the point where we're terribly alarmed at this point in time. So we'll continue to watch that scope creep. When you see the timeline where we started back in December with kickoff to that 75% approaching here, and we're approaching that 50% at the middle school, high school, which will bring you a whole lot more. We'll see some of those more updated drawings tomorrow, and I'll get those out to you. And we'll have plenty of chances before that 50% meeting to have some feedback from the Building and Grounds Committee and from the board. We are looking at the June for the elementary to be completely set up, and bids going out there shortly thereafter. We would look to approve bids July 19th at our July 19th board meeting, and construction, the shovel groundbreaking for the elementary school the end of July, first week of August time period. So for that addition. There is, for awareness for the board and for the community, we did find that there's a need for an early equipment package that's going to go out for bid. So I'm talking to you guys a little bit about it tonight. There are 4 new air handlers that will be going in, that new addition and that space off of the Commons area. And we need to get those ordered because of the lead time on those. So letting you know that tonight, we're going to issue the documents, go out to vendors tomorrow. Quotes are due by April 20th, and we will bring them for board approval end of April. And we'll talk about this a little bit with the contracts as well. We may have to do a couple of special meetings if we want to discuss those bid packages a little bit more. But timeline obviously is going to be important for some of those things. Equipment delivery date for the new addition, January 8th. Equipment delivery date for the remodeled area, June 10th. So that's what would be going out to vendors. If there are local vendors that are interested in those larger air handlers, Todd's information is on here, and you can reach out to him directly. Train will get one of the packages. There were 2 other vendors, and I left those notes in my office. Can you remember the 3? No, it doesn't matter. There are 3. I can send them out that will go out. But again, if there's anybody else for those large air handler units, we can send them to Todd, and he can make that happen. From a district standpoint, on top of all of those design meetings, with all of those changes, we're going to be upgrading to a new camera system at the elementary school and most likely throughout the entire district. So John and I have had about 5 or 6 meetings with different vendors and getting some ideas on what that will look like for the district. The clock and PA system at the elementary school will need to be updated. So we've had some meetings kind of figuring out what exactly that will look like. The door controls, burglar alarms, just making sure that everything is functioning the way that it needs to function. We may need to select a whole new system. Ideally, we would like to. We can use what we currently have for some of those things. Phones. Our phones are 27 years old and have definitely reached the end of their life expectancy, and that's across the district. So we are looking at going to IP phones with this process. So again, John and I have had a number of meetings with different vendors, just kind of learning about what that would look like, and we'll be bringing those proposals to you moving forward. There's a good chance we may be looking at like a cloud-based service for the phones and all that goes with that. The furniture is another piece, and I've got a meeting coming up with the elementary staff where we look at furniture. We've decided that we're going to try to take this on our own and not have a furniture designer do this. I truly believe it will be a financial benefit to us. So we're going to get some feedback. We'll get some things put out to the vendors that have been reaching out to us and anybody else that wants them for bids on equivalent or comparable type items to what we're looking for. We'll have all of our counts put together, and we'll be bringing those to the board for approval as we go. So all new furniture in those new spaces whenever possible. Some of the items like the kidney tables that have just been purchased in the last couple of years, those will go. Our second grade has brand new desks that we just approved last year. They will go. So we're working through what goes, what stays. So that's all part of that process there. That's a whole lot on the elementary school. Any questions?
When you just said they'll go, do you mean they're going to go to the new space, or they're going to, if we just purchase them?
I apologize. They will go to the new space, and we will continue to use chairs and tables that are only a year old.
Didn't we just put in a bunch of new cameras, or am I mistaken?
No, the camera system is the same district wide right now. The cameras themselves, there's a lot of them at the elementary school that are very, very dated, and we've planned for that. We just need to know what system we're going to use to monitor the cameras through that process. I do think if we get to better camera coverage throughout all of our spaces, which is our goal, is to have everything covered, all the halls and doorways and everything covered well, we'll be able to reduce the burglar alarm type fee that we're paying right now, because we're going to be able to see, we'll have alarms on our doors when they open, those types of things, that we can eliminate that service for an improved monitoring system, so that we can look at our, cameras from phones and iPads and those types of things remotely.
Questions regarding elementary?
But I don't know if that's really what you're looking for.
I guess, especially, and not that I don't want to answer all of them, I will answer all of them. Those exterior colors was something I really wanted to make sure I got feedback on. If there's thoughts on the skylights, please let me know if there's questions on that. If there's questions on any of those items that we're looking at that are kind of outside of the original plan, as far as the chiller, the parking lot, those types of things, please fire those at me. And then those interior colors or colors in general, those were all things that I definitely wanted feedback on. If you have other questions, Tina, I'm happy to answer them. If you have questions on those, that's great too.
So parking, I'll start there.
Yep.
You have additional parking. How many additional parking spots are you looking at, and are you concerned of the flow of traffic there?
Well, I think the parking would be for staff only.
I would take that line out of the north parking lot, because our teacher's going to be over on the other side, so that would probably, it would be all staff parking for sure. It would not change the flow in the morning at all. I could probably improve the evenings. Yeah, probably to the north, it would improve that for sure. But that same circle, as much as you're hooking up and all that, I get.
No, I was more concerned of how much you would get in there for parking, and I think if you have the space, it's nice that we can utilize it. I was more concerned about the traffic flow And how many, because right here in the picture, it makes me feel like there's going to be a lot, but I don't think you have that much space. So I don't think it's going to be that much, is it?
Gotta be enough different back in there, and that would be the only thing that would change, which really would take all those cars out of the north parking lot for that.
Okay. And then,
I would say pretty close to what's in the middle of that line in that north parking lot.
that's more than I thought then.
Which it may change how we utilize that front area. The problem with, quite honestly, it would be probably better for us to flip them, the bus and the parent drop off. The problem is the bus is getting into that front area.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Not the idea is there, it's just the way that the buses travel. And we can look at it, we will look at it, but, yeah, the mornings are getting, more and more people are dropping off. It's busy.
It's just nice to have that idea of how many like that's a lot of space then that you're going to take out and open up and put over there. So that could potentially be beneficial. And then my next one is the skylights in that main area. And so those skylights are for that main area only. It does not disperse anywhere else. Like, do you feel like skylights are an absolute must in that area?
Yes, some kind of natural light. It would be like this right here. That's that natural light along the top up there. I mean, without any natural light in that space, I just think you would be losing a great opportunity to make it comforting or whatever you want to call it. But
because that goes straight up and there's not that floating balance like that's going to be through the rest that we've talked about, right?
You're talking about the suspended ceiling?
Right.
They would do, that was brought up the other day. Sorry, David, if I'm talking over, but the structures of the skylights would come down, if I'm right on this, would come down to where the beams are now, and then it would be floating, I believe a floating type ceiling from there. So the inside would look finished. Right? Yeah.
I think they're gonna show us a couple different ideas of leaving the beams exposed or having a roof that feels more like this, that would just be one level and flat. And that might be okay because you got some beams there that don't exist anywhere else in the building, those metal I-beams, and painting them, they're not necessarily a good look to have exposed. So it has to give us the ability to kind of make that all uniform throughout there. But they're going to show us a couple different designs with some clouds. If you're, where that's like floating little sections of ceiling tile. The concern is there, we don't want to cut down on that light. When you talked about where else it goes, we are looking to cut openings into the music room. So the music room gets natural light from that project lab or the STEM room. The library would get borrowed light from that area. When you talk about
windows in, okay.
because of those windows,
my
the
question.
4K would have window or light from the hallway and in the hallway. So there's a lot of disbursement of that light, and it's just going to make that feel warmer and more inviting. I think not having light, we talked about it because we could save a bunch of money by not doing it. But I think when you look at if it's going to cost about the same either way, and we can get that much more light from the skylights, that made sense to us.
I think it just makes a difference if it goes to more areas than just your regular lunch area. If it's just your regular lunch area, then it's different. Then I think put good lighting in, but if it disperses to all those other places, then I think you're.
That was the last meeting we were in, and they were coming back with some additional, because I asked the very question, because when we were in Sparta, we looked at this floating, or the cloud ceilings there. We talked about that, and they were coming back with some ideas. But again, like David says, every time we punch holes and stuff, they go back and bring us back. So we'll figure out something probably tomorrow, I guess, but I don't know.
And I'm kind of with Lori when we talked about the colors. When I first looked at this color scheme, I got really scared. But I also like to physically see that because it's a big difference from this, and I'm sure from what you've seen. And I do think it's very white and sterile down there, but I also think white brightens it up. And if you add a little white within this color scheme, I think it would really help.
That lighter tile is really pretty light, which will take care of some of that.
Because white will give you a good contrast too, I think. And the other thing is it brightens it a little bit. I know you're going to have a lot of natural light, but you want to do
This one and this
blue.
one and this one are all I mean, that's I would say pure white. These are.
And it looks like a cream there, because at first when you showed me this, I thought those two were cream, and that was gray. So seeing it would help.
I think
Yeah.
there's a picture of me taking this picture, standing on the boardroom table, and taking a picture of this that's all laid out on the table, trying to get the best angle I could. I think we can definitely get those samples when it's time and we know we're zoned in on those. Yep. Yep.
Well, because it's different from my iPad from up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Considerably different color.
I think you guys should all enjoy going through the process of choosing those colors. I think that would be a great way to spend the afternoon. As long as I'm still in my building, you guys are down here, so.
I guess the one piece that I'm hearing there, Tina, introduce a bright white, and I understand that. Is there thoughts that we should introduce a blue or a green or I mean, I think this is our color palette. I mean, this represents our Bangor community. That's what our.
I'm not against this at all. Like,
Okay.
I am totally fine with staying with.
You don't want pink.
Just a little white might pop.
And
but-
some white might pop.
It doesn't look like what's on the screen up there. I mean, it's better than that, so. We'll get you their actual samples. and
Absolutely.
invite you in to see them.
Yeah, that one area that I saw with the blue chairs, I was like, Jared did those, didn't
Yes, that's
he?
the.
Lodi's blue, so I'm guessing it was Jared.
So that was the next picture I went to.
Red or
Which-
red or black or gray or something like that. I guess that just stood out to me like,
Is that one? Oh yeah. So there's space holders. We'll blame Jared. I don't think it was, but
So I'm going to give you my other questions. You can answer them later. You don't have to answer them now. My other question would have been the lights up above. Those coming down are not going to come straight back into those other windows at that angle, right? At any time, and cause. You don't have to answer that
yeah.
now, but keep
Yeah,
that in your thoughts, please.
I think we'll be okay there.
Okay. I'm talking actual, any
there may
kind of
be-
reflection or distraction, or I just know that depending on what time of day it is, you know, if you're kidding this way, it's coming, I don't know. I'm
The
just concerned about.
The other piece to this that's not here yet is the HVAC people have to bring some significantly large HVAC tubing across here too. So that's not in that image yet. You know, so, and then there's no light fixtures up there. There's no other, that's just kind of the open space right now.
When I look at this, I look at clutter. That's what I see. I see how do kids walk around these tables and chairs in
They-
this hall.
Those
They won't
chairs
be
won't be, that won't be there.
Oh, okay,
It's just,
They just want to show us the
that's not going to be there.
thank you.
Kelly would take 4 kids that needed help with, I don't know, whatever.
There will be some soft seating in there probably, so you can do a little group work. The flooring will be inviting to little pods of kids doing stuff, whatever, but those particular shapes of tables will not be in there.
So and maybe it'd be better to do out in the middle. I mean, if you count, it's 18 feet across that hallway. So that's the wall to Shelley, and Shelley would still be in the hallway. We could count that off. It's probably 3 of your banquet tables, 2.5 of your banquet tables if you count the squares on the box or on the floor. It's a significantly wide space. I would say those desks and chairs are oversized for what would be in there. That's, again, they gave them to us. They put that in there for perspective of the space. What else you got, Tina? I like it. This is important conversations. I want you guys to ask the questions. I want to make sure.
Again, you don't have to answer this right now, but then my next question is where we go to the receiving line and we have that dark door that comes into the dumpsters. Are you going to make that then a ramp there for them to come in? Yes? Okay.
Yes. Up here.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's again where if we don't have to have all this parking across the middle and maybe that parking stops here so that we've got room for that dump truck to get it, or the garbage truck to get in there. I think the other things that we can look at is if we're able to, we have not looked at traffic flow just from a lines painted on ground type of standpoint, but maybe we look at traffic flow across here with having 2 lanes of traffic, because maybe we don't have to use this parking during the drop off and pickup time. Or maybe they park, they park this way instead of pulling in. There's, 6 spots along there to park, and then there's 2 lanes of traffic, one for dropping off and one for driving by. We can talk about those traffic flow things if we gain that space over there. Mike's smiling. It'll be great. All right, Tina?
I guess my next one will go later and you can answer it. Do all of our current rooms have sinks in them right now?
Yes.
All of them do, okay. And both, okay. The rest I'll save for later. I'll let you continue, sorry.
It's all good. I truly, I said it before we started, I think this is an incredibly important time. This is when we can still, have some real discussions, change some things. It's important to have our feedback. I think we have a great thing going with our team, and the conversations are going well. But you guys have to make sure that you are on board with what we're working towards.
Those windows, are you going to be able to see through them, or are they reflective back out? So those big ones, can you see in and see what's happening?
Into
or are
the classroom? I'm sure they're going to have.
No, the ones from outside, those really big ones that you were showing. So if I'm standing outside from the playground and I'm looking in, is that like a reflective black, just look like a glass, or am I seeing through?
Kevin, what do you usually see on those? I think she's talking like these.
Good question.
Is there usually a film?
I hate to say it, but we see all the above. It's really going to be what you guys determine. Generally, the default is going to be, it'll be clear, and we'll be able to see down the hall. Right?
Yep.
But we can talk about that and see if you guys would prefer a different approach.
I could see for the classrooms, especially having the kind of the weather tinting so that the sun is not as bright in the classrooms, and it's not a real easy walk by and see what's going on in every classroom. But I can also see up high here that was being clear, so we let in as much light as possible. So a combination.
More that big, huge wall of glass.
The door is
Yeah.
The east facing Bangor
Yep.
glass.
Yeah, and there's going to be a south facing similar bank there too that faces out towards the interstate.
Yeah, and Tina's still generally not being clear, difficult. Not all that different what we see, but again,
Is there a feeling you'd rather have that more of a tinted at ground level and clear up above to let in the light?
I think there's multiple ways you can take it, and I think just thinking about it, because I think there's several ways to go, and not
I think
safety-wise.
from a light perspective, but also from a security perspective.
Yeah.
I was thinking safety, I was thinking more safety. I don't know.
That's where my brain is going as you're going with it, but that's why I think having that more of a dark tinted down low and up high, have it let the light in. We can look at that.
Tinted still let in lots of natural.
True, correct.
I still have a question on the parking lot thing.
Mm-hmm.
But can you, okay, stop, go back. Okay, so that little parking lot off to the side there, let's just say 6-8 spots. I'm being generous, right?
I think you're probably talking a dozen.
yeah, I would say not close. I know it doesn't look that way.
Okay, because I'm like thinking, if you go, okay, now go over to the other where we parked today. Right there. So, but we're removing the receiving there, that's gonna take out a good 8 to 10 spot, I mean,
It would.
think about that, when you drive by there in the daytime, and all the teachers are whatever.
To get to that entry, you're probably talking 4 spots. Am I correct in that, Mike?
Yeah, the delivery part of it, they just pull up. They just pull up on the sidewalk and it's interrupted into through the door.
So they're not,
The only pulling in now will be the garbage truck.
not
But
gonna
that'll
be during.
serve
Well, yeah, probably during the day.
And, yes, that we just went through. Yes, that we just did. I get it. No, it's just- Not that it matters now. It just, when you look at it proportionately, it does not look to me like you have enough spots over there to cover what you're gonna use. But I'm gonna take your word for it.
We will double check that count and confirm it for you. How about that? We can do that.
Because you can never find a parking spot, like.
Close to that building.
Ever by that building.
Hmm.
So that's where they all kind of end up over there. But if you're trying to keep that.
I think anything, even if it doesn't space it, it's gonna take on pressure off in that area and allow some more flexibility. Will every car fit down there? No. Maybe with the front stuff.
There's just so much traffic there with the buses coming through there and.
Well, not when I look at just teacher parking there and then running to get something out of your car is like a quarter-mile run.
Yeah.
So now that we're here, my other question would be that wall that's there with an open top, do you have to be concerned with inside of that for any reason? It's going to be high enough, right? There's no places for people to get in and out, or we don't have anything like that right now, right?
There's an enclosure around our dumpsters at the elementary down here.
The little square part.
And I don't, this isn't going to be like locked off because there'll still be an entrance into that enclosure here that we won't secure that area in there.
Because there's really nothing.
And we'll have a camera on the generator, so somebody messes with it, we'll know who did it.
You're working on something that wall.
Correct. We can make that pop.
Big mural.
Nice big mural or something. All right.
I think that's what you have to do to describe the fact that.
Yeah. Anything else on the elementary school? Important that we took the time tonight. So thank you for letting me take that time. The rest of the agenda, hopefully we can move through fairly quickly. I do have next on here the facility projects in general. Our middle school, high school design is at that point where the last time we did make some tweaks. We'll see some of those drawings tomorrow. I'll hopefully be able to get you some to share kind of what we're thinking about really this area and how we kind of capitalize on the remodel in this area. The weight room, we're fairly close as far as the floor plan layout. We are working, we've reached out to 3 vendors. We're working closely with 2 that have submitted some proposals to us. We have group going on June 6th and June 7th to go try out the equipment at their different facilities, their headquarters, where we can kind of see the different configurations, make sure it is what we want, and then we'll be looking for that recommendation, for coming to you. Again, we're kind of choosing the weight room part outside of this, but within the overall the budget for the project. But we're kind of taking the lead on that because we wanted to make sure it's what we wanted for that area. We've got a couple of user groups coming up with the tech ed area to really look at how that space is used, and we should have a better drawing to kind of work off with them after our meeting tomorrow. We'll have another meeting coming up looking at the old school gym that will include the music folk and the drama people to kind of look at how that backstage area might flow, and hopefully have some new drawings on that after some pretty good conversations the last time we were here. We have advanced that concept of actually removing one of the sides of the bleachers and repairing, fixing up the bleachers on one side so they're full, because we were going to remove a couple of rows, so we were going to lose some anyway. But if we fix up on one side, we then have a side where when they're pitching, when they're doing some of that stuff inside that we'll continue to use that building for, they're not throwing towards the wooden bleachers, they'd be throwing towards a wall, and less damage done at that point in time. And I think just even in volleyball, being able to have kids along the wall and hitting into a wall right now, there's really really not the space to do that in that space. So we're thinking about how we use that space a little bit differently, trying to incorporate, if we can, a batting cage area in the addition that could be up and down type thing, but be available throughout the year. Trying to make that happen within that space. We had not originally checked in the air conditioning on that building. We are investigating what it would take to make sure that that's air conditioned so that when we do have large events in that building, it is not uncomfortable for folks. So that's something that they're looking at the engineering behind and what it would take to make that happen. And we'll come back to you with those thoughts there. I guess, Rick, anything else on middle school, high school, or that old school that you can think of as far as an update? Okay. Financially, all of our first and second rounds of borrowing are settled and set to go. We'll have that January 2024 next issuance of the $4.75 million at that point in time in bonds, and that's obviously a little ways away to prepare for that. The contracts are coming to you here in a little bit. It was quite a lengthy process going back and forth and making sure that we've got those covered, but I feel like we're in a good place with those, and Kevin's here, and hopefully between the two of us we can answer any questions you might have on those. Any other questions in general on the referendum? I've got a couple items that I'm going to come back to later in my agenda just to kind of clarify on the referendum, but I'll leave it for now.
Thank you. Okay, David, one more intro to transfer of service.
Yeah, thank you. Got another presentation for you. Just this is a new concept to Bangor and the Bangor School Board that we have not used in the past. So part of my job, and I'm going to bring to you a staffing proposal for next year tonight. Part of my job, when I tell you that I think we need to increase spending to increase staff or whatever that may be, is also to try to find ways to cover that with revenue to make that happen. And one of the ways that we do that is through, in the state of Wisconsin, there's a system called transfer of service. It comes from the statute that's right there, the 12191 in the Wisconsin statutes. And it's basically a situation, the full definition right from DPI's website is there. It's a situation where somebody moves into our school district during a school year and they have special education needs, ESL needs, a specific need that requires us to hire additional people to cover that need. And when we hire that, we pay for that difference out of that year. The following year, so this would be a transfer of service that we'd use for next year, we are actually able to take that amount increase for that new personnel and charge it to transfer of service, which allows us to increase our revenue limit by that amount. There is a cap that kind of controls you from not going overboard with this, but the reality is when we have new expenses that come into our district that we can't necessarily control, and they move into our students move into our district, we need to meet those needs based on federal law. This gives us the ability to expand the revenue limit at a slight amount. It does not negatively impact the district that they left, but the district that they left does have to say, yes, we sent them to you with those needs. So the district that they left is involved in the process as well. For the process, basically, we would make a hire, and we're going to look to increase a position tonight by a half time that we will charge to transfer of service for next year. We make that hire during a year. The next year, we would look to approve a transfer of service application. So I can't just do this. It needs board approval to approve the transfer of service. So I will complete the application with Angie. I'll bring it to a board meeting and tell you this is how much we are applying for. Just because we apply, it still has to go through the process and be vetted and the numbers verified through DPI. Once they're verified through DPI, the board board is approved, they're verified through DPI, it actually comes in as a pre-populated cell on our revenue limit worksheet that we talk about every year at our annual meeting and when you guys approve the budget for next year. So the final number is not set until it comes to us on that worksheet. Again, it gives us the ability to address some needed staffing in a way that doesn't necessarily take away from our existing students. So it just helps us add those positions as we need. State, like I said, automatically populates that and will send it to us for that meeting. The impacts and considerations, and I think it's important that we consider these and we understand what we're doing. The district then gains the ability to cover those costs or some of the costs with the increased needs for cases where the district did not make the determination that those services needed to be provided. So another government entity made that determination, and we now have the cost associated with it. It allows boards the ability to increase the revenue limit by a small amount without going to referendum, and that's the only way that we can increase the revenue limit without going to referendum. The revenue limit increase does not go away, and I think that's an important thing, is that revenue limit stays there moving forward. So it's a benefit to us for compounding over the years, even as those students move through the system and graduate from our district. Once calculated into the entire formula, the increase in revenue limit authority, Angie and I have looked at this number. It will have little to no impact for what we're proposing for this year on our taxes impact in the community. So we should still be able to, as we look at it, we are still anticipating being able to bring a mill rate to the board for approval for next year that decreases from its current 9.5. So we are hoping to be able to continue to drop that mill rate even with this increase. And that's our goal, maintain that steady mill rate and hopefully continue to have it decline.
David, is this something that we would reapply for every year?
Not for these students.
Okay.
So once these specific cases are approved by the DPI, that mill rate change or that revenue limit authority stays in place forever. If we have new students that come in during the school year next year, we could reapply the following school year for those. But there's only the application window that starts on June 6th this year that affects your revenue limit worksheet for that following school year. So you can only apply during that window one time a year.
And then you board approve it
Every time.
after that, we revisit it.
You won't revisit the past cases. You would revisit any new ones. Obviously, I'm not going to come to you and explain how it works every year. I'm going to bring you this is what Angie and I have worked out that we could take to transfer service.
But we could have 3 students move in on July 1st or apply on July 1st, and we'd be too late. It would have to go to the next.
It would be the following year. Yep, correct. Yep. Any other questions there? So what I've included in the staffing proposal for tonight is what Angie and I have calculated, and it's an estimate. We'll finalize these numbers before I ask you for approval, is that we would be looking to take about $83,000 to transfer of service for next year, and we would be coming back in about June to seek formal board approval for that application at that point in time. It's important tonight because it's part of how we make the staffing proposal that I'm presenting work for next year. So if there's major concerns about it, obviously I would want to know. If there's no major concerns, we'll continue with that plan and come to you in June for that approval. Any other questions on transfer of service? Awesome.
Okay, so we have some action items. Next is architectural contract.
Yeah, I guess I got you to these, I think Monday, so that you could review them. The board has the original, kind of the marked up versions, and you can see how much we went through and edited through the process. I feel really good. We involved our attorney, Bob Butler, on this review process extensively. He really worked hard to protect the district interests when it comes to insurance and making all the insurance type things were covered. He worked hard to cover our interests when it comes to like the background checks. That again will be a future item on tonight's agenda, making sure that we have a system in place that we are in agreement with, that we know who is working on our facilities when they're working on our facilities. There were a number of just great language edits that he helped with there. We also worked with Whipfly, the accounting services, to help make sure that the financial part all made sense. Kind of a combination of both of those was in these contracts, and Kevin can speak to this, I'm sure, a little bit too if there's questions, but there's the architectural contract, and in a traditional model, not the Nexus model that we're happy we're with, in a traditional model, you have an architect and then you have a general contractor. In this model, it's all Nexus. So in a dispute with the general contractor, the architect becomes the initial decision maker on whether or not we're going to go with the change or the dispute, and they make a decision. If it's Nexus and Nexus, it didn't make sense to us. So we really had some great conversations. Bob put together some language that said, we really believe, and I truly believe this, and having the conversations I have, we're going to be able to work through those and come to an agreement. But if there's a disagreement between the general contractor and the district is actually the initial decision maker in this contract. So that was an important distinction for us. We're going to be the ones that say, no, we need to go to arbitration, and we need to make sure that we get this right. So that was an important language piece that we discussed extensively, and Nexus was great with working that out with us. If the issue is with a subcontractor, Nexus will be the initial decision maker on that, because it's a subcontractor under them, and that's a good trade-off where I feel like we can make sure that we're where we need to be. Again, Nexus has been great through this whole process, very understanding. I was actually when we met in Madison with Michael David to do this final negotiation, he and their attorney shared with us that they actually learned a few things from the comments and questions that we brought to them. So that was a real positive to the work of Bob Butler and to the folks from Whipfly that have helped and supported us. We will continue to work with Whipfly along the way, just to kind of confirm that all the numbers are making sense. We'll be back. If you look through this, a big part of the contract is, on our expenses is on that guaranteed maximum price. We don't have that guaranteed maximum price yet, and it's not realistic that we would have that. That's after the bids come in, and we know this is the guaranteed maximum price for the project, and then some of the percentages are built off that. I think it's important also to note with this contract that with both of these contracts, that what the building and grounds team put Nexus through when we hired them to be our facility consultants, they have delivered in this contract in every way along the way. So there's no surprises. They have done what they've said that they would do, and I commend them for that. And I feel really good about these contracts, both the architectural and the construction contract. Questions that I might be able to help with? A ton? Phew.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I am very grateful that you spent the time on it and you went through it. I appreciate it. I think it's extremely important to make sure that we are starting or continuing on the same. And so that's why your buildings and grounds were so tough at the beginning.
I think it's important too. We all collectively have a huge responsibility of $24 million project. I want every one of us to be able to stand back at the end of it and be very proud of that. And I know Nexus will be there right alongside of us, and we'll appreciate that relationship. So looking for approval of these two contracts as presented.
Go ahead, Shelley.
I'll make a motion to approve the AIA-B101-2017 standard form of agreement between owner and architect Nexus Solutions.
Second that.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Tina. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next is the Nexus construction contract.
Same work, a lot of the same language between them, so that making sure all of it aligned.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the AIA-A133-2019 and AIA-A201-2017 construction contracts with Nexus Solutions.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
There are a couple signatures that we'll need on the final contracts that Kevin has up here after the meeting. So thank you. Calendar adjustment, we talked about this a little bit last time. And the original November meeting, we had talked about the need for that winter break move-in time. So when we created that calendar in November, we were building off the idea that there would be an early bid package that we would get the elementary school started earlier than we have. We still feel very confident that the timeline is going to work, but we are not going to be moving at the Christmas break. We'll actually be moving at the like the Easter spring break next year. So this is a calendar change. So I wanted to bring it to your approval. Basically, it changes nothing as far as days or number of contract days for teachers. It takes the 2 extra student off days from January 2nd and 3rd and moves them to April 2nd and 3rd for next year. And it's during that April 2nd and 3rd day that our staff will have the ability to get settled in and ready to finish off the year in the new addition at the elementary school next year. So looking for approval, or any questions that you have, but looking for approval to move that date and make that our official calendar for 23-24. I will note too, I have said to Nexus very clearly, and they've heard me, we all look really silly if we keep moving this, so we're going to stay on this timeline. So we're working really hard to make sure that we don't hold them up.
I'll make a motion to approve the adjusted 23-24 school year calendar to adjust the change for the elementary classrooms moving into the new addition.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. District van purchase?
Go ahead.
I was just looking, so I didn't notice this last time, but we have on the 17th a professional development day, and then we're out on the 20th. We have a teacher, what's our last day is the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that Thursday before Memorial Day is the last day with students. Am I correct?
Yes.
We wanted to give the teachers one last day to pack up their rooms that need to be packed up and kind of get ready for the rest of that construction.
Okay. I was only thinking about snow days that we talked about last time, but we'll see how next year is.
Okay, thank you. Van purchase.
Yeah, so we've had these pandemic-related vehicle conversations a couple times. This year, we did budget in our budget for a new school bus and 1 to 2 vans, depending on pricing. We know that the school bus was not available. I couldn't get one this year, so we've pushed that to next year. Van prices are not what I want them to be, not what anybody wants them to be. But I think the reality of it is a new van with a warranty. It makes a lot of sense to us. Because we did not buy the bus this year, we are able to buy 2 vans. We will basically take our red minivan out of commission for hauling students and use it primarily for our custodial staff, and right now we have our elementary custodian is running to the post office and everything every day, over back and forth to buildings. So we will have that kind of running around with our staff in district, and then we'll be adding one. So at the beginning of last year, we did have, we did have 4 vans. We let the black Chevy go partway through the year, and we've been trying to get by with 3. We have many days where we have no vans available. It's probably good for the big white one that is our backup lift van to get some use on days, but we do have that occasionally hauling students as well. And again, probably good for it to be out and driven from time to time as well. But that's the point where we're getting to. I think, again, with the state reimbursement rate, having an additional van puts us more frequently with district staff driving the district van instead of being reimbursed for mileage. So I think to that advantage, going up in the fleet a little bit. And again, this is something that we had planned for in our budget, is within that overall budget. So looking for approval of 2 new Chrysler Pacificas from Sleepy Hollow and Viroqua. That total cost is actually down from my original email. Another rebate came available for them. It's not down that full rebate amount because we did add extra keys. It is really handy for us to have 4 sets of keys for every van. And they don't give those away for the new fobs and all of those types of things. So the $83,995 is for both vehicles, and the extra keys for both that are ready for us at Sleepy Hollow tomorrow if this is approved. There's 7 passengers. So the Chrysler and Dodge does not make a minivan anymore. I would say that to the average person, if you didn't tell them that it was a Pacifica, they would get in it and they would say it's a minivan. It feels very, very similar interior-wise to the Town and Country van, but that type of van is no longer made.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 Chrysler Pacificas from Sleepy Hollow for the total cost of $83,995.28.
I'll second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Staffing, David?
It's almost time for these guys to talk. 2023-2024 staffing proposal. So again, this is, we met in closed session a little bit, looked at the overall budget impact of this. We need to make sure that we're set on staffing so that we can get some postings out and start interviewing to hire for next year. Basically, the current considerations that we talked about in closed session tonight is we have really looked at the state budget projections for 23-25 for the next biennium budget, and trying to conservatively guess about how much of that will be coming through to support our schools. We've looked at the current enrollment trends for the district, and as you know, our enrollment trends are trending in the right direction, so there's some positives there. Transfer of service possibilities, which we've discussed tonight, raises for the 2023-24 staff, kind of looking into different options that we may have there. The insurance renewals for next year, and the supplemental pay and expenses, for different things for next year. The district projects that we can look at. So all of those areas were considered, and we reviewed those in closed session, kind of our estimates for where we stand with those. When we look at the enrollment numbers, this is a 3-year picture. So September count of 2021, September count of 22, and then our projected for 23. And you can see that enrollment trend as a district climbing by a significant number. The elementary, when we look at that and we start to talk about some of the spaces that we're designing there, you can really see that. When they looked at the capacity of that building, what did they say, about 315 307. So it's about timed well that we're going to be putting an addition on that building and adding some additional space. Middle school, high school, we're down a little bit at the elementary, but up at the high school. So you can see how that all kind of balances out. With those enrollment numbers in mind, this is the staffing proposal that was brought to the board last year with 100 total teaching or educators and staff for the district, and the 23-24 proposal there. The changes really come at the elementary school, going back to 27 teachers. When we look at this, there were 27 teachers here. We went to 26 for this, and now we're going back to 27 is what we're proposing. What that looks like is we would be creating a third section of first grade for next year. And I think we could talk about a lot of different ways that we could hire up to 3 teachers in that building. I think when it comes down to it, it's justifiable to increase by 1 teacher and to allow Mike as the leader of that building to kind of create the vision for what he envisions for that building. And that is 3 sections of smaller class sizes at K1 and 2 that build an outstanding foundation for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers, who will have a little bit larger sections with 2 sections instead of 3. So that's what we are able to create there and create some stability in those younger levels. Support staff, we do have a couple of new students coming in next year with some special education needs that we'll have to hire some paras for. We've talked about that. We have currently a 4-hour-a-day employee in a para ranks that we have absolutely the needs that have come in through transfer of service this year that we are, moved into our district, that we can increase that and then carry that cost to next year for the transfer of service, helping that overall impact. At the middle school, high school, we've had 3.5, and when you look at this list over here, the important thing is these are bodies. They're not percentages of people or anything like that. We did have 3.5 positions that have retired, and as well as the library retirement as well. We want to leave the behavioral support that we hired in January really to meet some of those transfer of service type needs, and we will take that cost to transfer of service. And we want to hire 4 full-time FTEs in science, Spanish, social studies, and to be approved tonight, that iPad interventionist, iPad coordinator and interventionist. We would take then the library para position and eliminate the study hall portion of that job, help out and support in the library a little bit, but really change the way that we use the library. We've had some great conversations with Lindsay around that, and we would make sure that that area is covered, and then we're able to take those positions and then hire the full 4 full-time, as well as that additional position up there. At the district level, we continue to budget for that full-time speech teacher, and we hope that comes through. Overall impact of the staffing proposal is an estimated, and we've kind of talked through this, about a $30,000 increase in staffing when we figure in attrition and we figure in the transfer of service and all those types of things. We will continue for the 2nd year to use about $70,000 of ESSER to meet some of our interventionist needs, because we need to get to that 20% of that ESSER amount, and then the rest of the ESSER amount we will go towards our capital projects. And then the transfer of service applications will be going through for those 1.5 positions. So that's all figured into that about $30,000 increase. Again, all of those are estimates. We don't know who we're hiring in those positions. We don't know if we'll have any other people leave the district, but we feel pretty safe in saying that this staffing proposal of 103 overall staff members will serve us well. So I will answer any questions on that, and Rick and Mike can as well. The administrative recommendation is to move forward with the hiring, and as discussed there, go from 100 to 103 employees. We'll have final, we won't have the final numbers on that, what all that works out to, till really our October meeting when we approve the budget, but we feel pretty confident that we can make that happen. With approval of the staff staffing proposal tonight, we'd be posting and hiring for all the positions discussed as soon as possible. Questions there?
Have we posted for any of these yet?
Yes, we actually interviewed for Spanish tonight before the meeting. Science is set up for interviews next Tuesday. Social studies working on for next Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay, great.
Great.
The
I didn't want to get too far behind on that because there's not a lot of, we only had 2 Spanish candidates and they're probably going to be gone within the next week or two, and they both have other interviews that are scheduled. So wanted to get on it.
I hope you wowed them.
Hopefully tomorrow I can, get the reference checks done and get a yes out of our top candidate, I hope.
Any other questions?
The iPad interventionist was a newer position for us, correct? Not too long ago? Or was it part-time and then we changed it to full?
I actually held the iPad part of that, and halftime geography started, 10, 11 years ago. And then once I moved into the principalship 4 years
That's when we
ago, then
switched
we added the interventionist for that because her skill set was set for that.
Okay. I just remember we talked about it.
And I did discuss in closed session tonight, and to be full transparency, where we're looking at adding a first grade position, we may have an internal transfer, which meant we might post for a different position. And I would say the same could very well happen for the iPad type position as well. What we post for might not align, but the overall count is what we're looking to approve tonight. Because I think we'll have internal interest on both those positions.
I think my concern still lies as it did last year, and that's with the 51 and the 49 with third and fourth projected. Because you can see 38, it moved to 47 in January to September. That was almost 10 kids. So if we start out the school year already high and we have move-ins, we don't open a classroom at that point, or we never have historically.
Once, I think we did, yeah, which is not desirable by any means.
Right.
I think you can, I think as far as the projection goes, and that's a tough one because like 45 in my building is a really great number, right? It doesn't seem like we can hit 45. We're either at 42 or we're at 51. And 50 is a really tough number, 51. But you could argue on literally any grade level in my building right now, there's not one that's under 40. And you could make an argument, like David said, to hire 3 people. I don't have any space for that if I wanted to, but I'm just saying that you could. And you really have to, I look at the size of the K-1-2 classrooms and what they're trying to do at that level. And, the 25 in the third, fourth, fifth grade, it's a manageable size. I taught with 32 students in my classroom for a lot of years. Granted, that was middle school, but it's doable. And the bigger change for me on that is that 50 is a bubble class that's rolling through, and it's to hire that position is very, very short term. When the long-term vision for the school, in my opinion, is to really get that foundational skills in place, intact, so that the work at the third, fourth, fifth grade theoretically is smoother. With the implementation of everyday 4K coming in, I have no reason to believe that our incoming third graders, when they get there, when those current 4Kers get there, will be a substantial increase. There's no reason to say otherwise. They're going to come into kindergarten next year, completely different student than what we're used to getting. As much as I don't like 25 in any of those classrooms, but that's going to move on after a year, and then it'll be more like that, and it'll be more in that mid-40 range, which is, I'm not then rerouting another teacher at that point in time. I guess that's, I think if you're not going to hire 3, you've got to make a decision on what you want to do. And that's my personal belief, is really hammer down on the foundational skills at the K-2 level.
I'll make a motion to approve the number for the 23-24 staffing proposal as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, the Raptor Visitor Management System, this came out during as we looked at the contracts. We really want to be able to make sure when our contractors are here that we know that we don't have people near kids that shouldn't be near kids. So we need a system in place. We also look at a climate in this country where school safety continues to be a concern. Raptor Visitor Management System is a system that I have used. It is a good system for just checking people in when they come into our building as normal visitors. So what we are looking to do is accomplish both those things with once. We'll actually use a little bit of the capital projects to help cover some of the startup cost. We'll have a check-in station by Jean, a check-in station by Terry, and we will also have one in the Nexus booth for when employees are, in their office for when contractors come onto site that they can double check them and we know who's here. We will work with anybody that is coming in, but we will at least be able to know their background and be able to say this person can't be around when our students are around or whatever that may be. It gives us the ability to really see in and know that who we have around our students is who we want to have around our students, especially during that work that's happening during the school year. So summer work, when it's a closed site, we're not as concerned about it, but when there's students around, we're definitely more concerned. So that gives us the way to do that. There is a yearly cost of $1,200 for Raptor, and then there's the startup cost and the equipment cost to get everything up and rolling. So you can see that total cost of $4,652. We will get that rolling. We will use it for our buildings. If we decide we want to keep it, we'll plan for that cost moving forward. If we decide after the construction's done that we don't need it, we can revisit at that point in time. But I think it really addresses, as we talked through, especially with Bob, talked through knowing who's in our district. It's a great way to, a great tool to be able to do that. So looking for approval to purchase and get rolling for the 2023-2024 school year, the Raptor Visitor Management System.
I'll move to approve the purchase and use of Raptor Visitor Management System to begin during the 2023-2024 school year at a total cost of $4,652.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
I'm going to let Rick take this retirement, as I should let them, their principals always take these.
Thank you. Reluctantly, Roxanne Krovic is retiring. I'm happy for her, though. She taught for 28 years in Sparta and then has been here the last 4 years in our iPad and interventionist position. In her letter, one of the things that stands out to me, just because I've known her for a long time, obviously, and you guys know that, but she said, I felt appreciated and supported here in Bangor, which is something I'm very thankful for. And as the principal of her, obviously, I that means a lot to me, and I know she didn't always feel that way in the previous district that she was in, so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for her service, and she did a great job for us. Our interventions that she ran were just top-notch. That's going to be a tough one to fill for the intervention part of that, but a lot of kids seeing a lot of growth due to her, so we're asking for approval for her retirement. I don't know how we can block it, but but I want to take the time to thank her for her service here.
I'll make a motion to approve the retirement of Roxanne Kravic as District iPad Coordinator for the middle high school, interventionist and track coach effective at the end of the 22-23 school year.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Roxanne. Para increase?
Yeah, this, again, we've talked about in closed session, we've talked about a little bit in, in the staffing proposal. Part of our staffing proposal means that we're going to respond to some of those increased needs we've had come in this year by increasing the para support time at the elementary school from 4 hours to 4 or 7.25 hours for Gretchen Eklund. And that would go into effect on Monday is our plan for that. We'll take that difference and charge it to transfer of service for next year and then be able to continue to keep her at full time moving forward.
I'll make a motion to increase the current para Gretchen Eklund from 4 hours per day to 7.25 hours per day, effective April 17th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, administrative reports. Mr. Chaplin.
Thanks, Julie. So just more informational things for me today. April 5th was Paraprofessional Appreciation Day. We have great paras working in our district, and the special ed teachers did do at each building lunch for them that day. So again, really appreciative of all those things that they do for our kids. April 26th is Administrative Assistance Day. I know I can't do anything of my job without those wonderful people. So Jean being one of them. So lots of multi-talented things that they do throughout the day. So really want to appreciate them for what they do. Our special ed outing that we have done, we didn't do it during COVID, but we've returned to that, taking the special ed students to do a community outing. We do one in the fall at Oktoberfest, and then our spring one, we go down to the Bangor lanes and they get to do something in our community. So that's coming up next week. And then the last thing is the state testing. Some of it's completed and some of it's in progress. So it should be done within the next couple weeks.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Julie. Just an update, more or less. State testing has started. We had some testing done today. I'm just super impressed with the students and their just an overall good attitude. Talked to every classroom prior to them testing. Just talk through some strategies when they get kind of frustrated, what they can do, and walk through them and. Just encourage them to try their best. And really, at the end of the day, that's what we need. And they just seemed, as I pop around and ask the teachers how it's been going, it's been really pretty positive, and I'm thankful for that. Along with the teachers that put all the prep work into that, we have 2 new third grade teachers who have never done that before, and it's quite honestly, you had 2 veteran teachers that have done it for a long time, so that was a little bit of a learning curve on their end, but they're true professionals and they work hard at it, as well as 4th and 5th grade being helpful to that overall process. And then just summer school. Again, summer school is the last 2 weeks of June, first week of July, and Friday morning, Harry and I will sit down and really look at offerings. We are on our on the schedule that we created after last year. Her and I sat down and just basically how can we be more efficient, better, that kind of thing, and we're right on track with where we want to be. And I'm looking at staffing. I think I'm pretty close. So I'll probably be begging some staff towards the end, but we'll see how that goes. So it's going well.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? David?
Rick, did we miss anything? Or
Rick, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, I don't have him on there. I just wanted to make sure. You're all good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'll just talk when we get to openings a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So just 5 lacrosse county superintendents all went yesterday to Eau Claire together, and the 5 of us testified in front of the state's Joint Finance Committee and shared those same things that I've been talking about here, the increase in spendable money to the revenue limit, the per pupil allocations. So that was an important part of it, the increase for the special ed funding from the 30% to the 45 and 65 as have been requested, the fully funding 4K, moving forward, the support for mental health, and those 4 themes kind of came through in that presentation. When they tell you that you'll have 5 minutes to present as a group, you have 5 minutes, and they are jumping on you to get you cut off. But I know they had a full day, and they have multiple full days of those listening sessions. But it was great to spend that time with those county soups and just kind of hear where they all are. We had the conversation kind of on the way home that our kids deserve us as advocators, as people that are out and pushing for this, and somebody's got to do it. It felt more political than any one of us liked, but the fact of the matter is our kids are worth it, and we'll continue to spread that word. We have a press release that'll be coming out on that today, or was released on that today. 2023 budget, Angie and I have reviewed where we stand. We are running really well, running on track right where we want to be, so that's a good thing, even with some increased costs that have come in throughout the year. As inflation has hit everybody, we are in a place where we're going to be coming probably the next meeting with a couple of those year-end purchases, and looking to be putting some money in Fund 46 at the end of the year as well, so that we can continue to get ready for some of the future projects as well. I talked a little bit about the referendum. I wanted to publicly talk about this and talk to the board. I don't necessarily need a discussion or feedback tonight, but there are some topics that come up in these discussions that if there are people that are passionate about them, I really need them to let me know now. And if nobody lets me know, then we're going to make our decisions and keep moving. So some of those topics include Nature's Recipe and the work that had been out there. That parking lot we were talking a lot about is going to cover a large part of that. A lot of the trees that were planted that have the little plaques donated by folks, those types of things. If there are people that feel, strongly about those items, I need them to reach out to me. We're going to try to honor those folks, keep all those plaques, maybe plant some new trees at that point in time, out beyond there. But if there's strong feelings on that, please send those folks to me, or if you guys have some of those concepts. Similarly, there's a Wisconsin animal display of taxidermy animals in the core of the elementary school. It is an amazingly cool display. I'm not sure where it fits into the new design, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to move forward with that. So again, if there are people that are very passionate about that in our community that have helped contribute to that and have some thoughts and ideas on those items, please reach out to me. If you know somebody or having conversations, please let them know. We are looking at more and more surplus items that we'll be looking at. I have had a conversation with Mr. Craig from Craig's Auction Service about the potential of doing an auction. I think there's some simple things like extra desks and chairs that we might be getting rid of at the end of this process. But there's also going to be some neat items like scoreboards out of that old gym that would be a kind of a cool thing in a basement or something like that. So if there are items like that, that we may auction off, again, if there are specific items that you're thinking about, or if there's a process you'd like or don't want to see, please let me know. Otherwise, I will try to figure out how to stockpile some of that stuff and put together a sale of some sort. Tree removal in front of the middle school and high school weight room. I am understanding that one of those trees was kind of a memorial type tree, and that we are looking at some options to try to get that moved, and we may move it over even by like the softball diamonds, just because there's not a lot of shade over there by the bleachers and stuff. But we're looking to relocate that tree, or maybe just over towards the high school addition. We're trying to be cognizant of those types of things. Again, if there's strong connections to those things, let me me know. And then the last piece that I would just talk about is I've had a few people and a couple organizations talk about some potential donations. Again, just publicly saying if there's thoughts from an organization or individual that you would like to maybe donate to enhance the arts and to make the stage area a step better than what we had maybe originally planned for, this is an opportunity to step forward. If there was opportunities and you wanted to support the sporting area, the athletics, through the weight room or through some potential other projects that you would like to do that. Again, there are people that have talked about it, and I'd rather know those things now in the design process that we can kind of extend our scope as we're going through this process versus if it's going to be that way. So I just say that not begging, but just because a few people have asked, and I just want people to know if they are thinking about that, please reach out to me and we can have some of those conversations and to help make this facility, this room itself is going to be amazing with an area that's kind of displays our state trophies and some of the other successes of the district. If you want to help with that, let us know. So, we just wanted to have that open. The other things I talked about earlier in my report, just on those phone systems, camera systems, and all those other systems that we're working on. Any questions for me? I feel like we've talked a lot. I've talked a lot. It's the longest meeting we've had. I apologize.
Any questions? Okay. Removal of items from the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda tonight are current openings, which are listed. High school music overnight field trip. And there is a notes in your packet here, page 27, 28, and 29. Also an overnight field trip request for Odyssey of the Mind, and there's description of that on page 30. And then also hiring of a varsity assistant JV baseball coach, and there is information in your packet on page 31. Any questions about any of those items? Or wish to remove them from the consent agenda?
If there's no questions, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Second that, yeah.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lisa, to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I need to abstain.
Tina
And
will abstain.
congratulations as a parent of that group going to the
Yes,
Odyssey of Mind World
congratulations.
competitions.
It's very exciting.
Buy lots of hot dogs this weekend.
So I ask for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone.